Hey everyone, it is Elly from Ex-Fundie Diaries, and this is a very impromptu reaction video. I was not planning on doing this, but I just happened to go on YouTube tonight and Fundie Fridays' most recent video caught my eye, and by caught my eye, I mean my eyeballs nearly fell out of my head because the title was Dave is Deconstructing. This is Dave from Girl Defined, or rather he's the husband of one of the Girl Defined sisters, specifically Bethany. And the title alone blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute, what? What? And I must admit, I'm a little bit out of the Fundie sphere these days. I don't really watch a lot of deconstruction or Fundie or ex-Fundie related content. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore Fundie Fridays, always and forever, and Gabs with Abigail and many other, creators. I still have so much affection for them. I'm just not really into that kind of content. So I haven't really been keeping up on Girl Defined very much in the last year or so. So maybe a lot of people saw this coming and I'm just, totally late to the party, but what the fuck? I'm shocked. I'm intrigued. I needed to watch it right away, but I thought, you know what? This is momentous. This deserves to be shared. So I just decided that I would let you all in on my reaction as I react to a reaction. And if that's not YouTube, I don't know what is. So I'm very excited. Let's get into it, as they say. I'm starting at about 11 minutes into the video. I've already watched Jen and James' intro, Reverend Jen and King James. It's also a very long video. It's an hour and 40 minutes and I'm only 11 minutes in. So I probably won't be sharing the full reaction, but at least some of it. Let's see how far we get.
Your experience of this with me.
Yeah, so I don't know how this is going to go, what this format's going to be, but we're going to watch it and we're going to pause when we have something to say.
Alright, let's blow the lid off this month.
Babe!
I got you on camera smiling in a cute and sexy way when I cursed.
Do we have to watch this?
That didn't take long.
You know what?
Literally 10 seconds.
Good for them. Good for you and your healthy biblical sex life.
Also, I got
Healthy biblical sex life. I love it. Jen, you're funny.
to say, Bethy, that first of all, that's a cute girl. You know.
She's about to get it.
Good.
Okay.
Good for you.
That's why he doesn't watch the channel. Comments like that.
You earned that little shit-eating grin. Take it and enjoy it.
Good for you, Bethy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's...
But in case you were wondering, that was in response to Dave cusses, and it offends some of their friends, so that...
Dave cusses? Wow, I'm really behind. I'm really behind on the times. What is happening?
That's why that joke.
I'm locked 13 layers in my mind castle.
Guys!
I'm sorry, I have no space in here.
Okay, that's because
Are we filming?
we don't ever film together.
13 Layers in the Mind Castle is my favorite Rush album.
Oh my god. I hope he likes
know about
Rush. We
you.
know he likes Billy Joel.
But
We need to film more.
We're so bad at this. But we'll get better.
Okay, this was when we went out on our very first date ever. Well, my dream. I told you this.
Wait, can I just pause for a second here? How is Bethany so calm? If Dave is really deconstructing, why is she sitting there smiling and just chatting away with him? This is sinking in right now. This must be her very worst nightmare. I mean, how is she coping? Also, it might be his worst nightmare, but he looks really happy. It was my worst nightmare when I started deconstructing against my will. This is fascinating. This is so fascinating to be watching this in real time because like, okay, when I deconstructed, when I started, you know, I had like a super big faith crisis and started deconstructing, I was terrified and I felt so lonely and so alone. And like, yes, I had blogs that I was reading, but I didn't have anyone else in my real life or anyone else that was like talking about it that I could be listening to, talking with. But this is happening right now, and these folks are so big in their world, you know, like they have such a big following. They're like famous, they're YouTube famous at this point. So it's just wild to think about them like going through this in real time and us like having the privilege of watching it. I don't know, I feel like weirdly honored. Is that weird? I feel weirdly honored that like they're sharing this video. Oh, I'm almost getting chills. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, let's keep going.
This might be like really forward. On our very first date ever, I told you about like how I thought we were like really special and unique because we were really good friends at that point, and how I thought we could have like a YouTube channel.
I told James on OkCupid that I thought we were soulmates, and I was correct. So
She did say that.
I love them. Jen and James, if you're watching, I love you, but you already know that.
Shout out to Paul and Morgan. They were awesome, and they did such a good job facilitating our conversations and running around with the camera and being very non-invasive about it, and you know, don't film our kids, and
Don't film our neighborhood, don't film our privacy.
We wanted to kind of, you know, keep some of that and keep it more focused on conversations and things like that. But it wasn't originally gonna, like, I wasn't gonna be in it nearly that much
can you imagine? That would have been a totally different video.
originally. If you want to say what it was gonna be, I don't.
They look genuinely in love. Again, I'm out of the loop, so, you know, current Fundie snarkers, correct me if I'm wrong, but they look genuinely in love, which must make this whole thing of Dave deconstructing so much more painful right now for both of them, because they have like literal conflicting worldviews. Holy shit.
It was supposed to be a girl defined. That was not part of the plan.
Yeah, and I kind of saw it, the wheels turning in Paul's head, you know, as we're starting to have conversations here, you know, at our house and about some of our differences, and he's like, "Hey, Morgan, I think this might be a good direction," you know.
That was a pretty good Paul impression. Is Dave funny? I haven't seen very much of him, but like, he's kind of funny. That was a really good Paul impression.
And
It was like evolving as they were.
Well, now we know what Dave's Paul impression sounds
I
like.
love it. I love it.
It's a good start, Dave. It might need a teeny bit of workshopping.
What if David Beale had a low taper fade?
What if David Beale questioned his religious beliefs?
Hours with you that was completely like unplanned, so that was kind of cool.
I feel like I was already planning to go to the Copelands, though. I don't think I was that busy because I was mowing the lawn.
I got a
Oh, no, you kept
So,
emphasizing
Maria,
to me.
you can come if you want.
Right before they got here, because I didn't want it to be like a big thing where we had anyway, but it turned into a big thing and in a good way, and it was a lot of fun and challenging and brought up a lot of things for us in our relationship. And if you watch the video, which if you haven't seen the video, go watch the video.
Yeah, watch it before
If you're
this.
interested,
Watch it before this.
if you're not interested in random people on the internet, then do not watch this video.
Oh, we watched
But
it, buddy.
if you are, then watch it, and it should be fairly clear that there's, you know, some differences that we have and things that came up, and it was a lot of it was some really good conversations. Actually, I think really benefited our marriage in a lot of ways.
In the long run.
She's like, I have faith that someday
No.
there will be, have had been
First
some
of all, if you
benefits
try-
of said weekend.
The problem is you can't do the whole hand thing, because if you do that, you're going to end up with this move with a bunch like it, because he's got the, you need the low
got the
taper
low taper
fade.
fade,
It is
yeah.
ironically,
Yeah.
you need a low taper fade to pull that off.
Just bringing up the sorts of conversations that that we have, but we hadn't had conversations like we did in the video in that topic. We had very honest conversations in other areas of our lives, but in that specific topic of specifically like the outward facing Bethany and the world and Girl Defined and the critics and all this stuff, we hadn't really gone there for a while like that deeply.
Because we know we disagree.
Because we know there are some disagreements, and
so it's like, why rehash it? We haven't ever gotten to the point where we see eye to eye. So it's like, we know, it's just kind of like we agree to disagree. And that encompasses a lot, not just like how we view in that conversation. It was like the haters, but it's like beliefs, what I do with Girl Defined, the stuff I write about, talk about. We've known we don't see eye to eye convictions wise on some of that stuff. So it can just be stressful to like rehash it when like, why are you going to rehash it? We know we don't agree. So like, let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, we will rehash it if apparently a small film crew comes to town.
I find that interesting because, and this probably isn't the most healthiest thing, but I can't let shit go. So if we disagree on something, I'm going to hammer it to the point where I cause actual damage to the conversation and our relationship. So I don't know, maybe there is something to dropping it, but at the same time, I understand the drive to want to always be right. So I just find this very interesting because I don't have any advice or anything to condone or to say is bad, because I do bad all the time. I yell at you and I feel like I have to be right all the time, even when maybe I know that I'm wrong. And so I don't know if that's growth or not, but
Well, I think it's growth.
I'm sorry.
Aw, well, it's.
I apologize in the moment too.
She does. I like to stick up for her because, quite frankly, I think and I'm sure there's some Genonites out there with some really kick-ass opinionated spouses. You know, it's a trade-off. Someone with a big, strong personality, they're going to have that everywhere. And for the people they care about and for their own growth, good people with big personalities learn how to apologize and temper that in like you have. I will say that I think it's very interesting that it seems like they're really trying to use this influencer life they lead. Dave kind of accidentally, I think, which I feel you on that, Dave, ending up working on internet videos by accident. But it seems like y'all are trying to get the most out of it, and that's really cool. And I will also say that I think it's a push and pull, where it's, and I think that's one of the things that's interesting about deconstructing religion is oftentimes you also have to deconstruct gender, because when you talk about, like, you have to push the point, well, sometimes that's because I run away from it so hard it ain't funny, and that's because when you're when you're socialized masculine, in at least this society that I grew up in, you're taught, take those feelings and batter them down and don't talk about them. No one wants to hear that crap. Wow. And so you have to have someone be a little tenacious to show that you care. And I think that
recently we've been working on,
and I say
sharing your feelings and not burying them.
We're both going to different therapists and they're great. But I say all this to say that, like, you also, as you deconstruct gender and society and religion as they're doing, all of these things kind of fall apart. It's why deconstruction can be so scary, because it's like that, I don't remember what that game was, where it had, like, you had a bunch of marbles on top of little pins you pull out, and, like, every little pin you pull out is one more before or the shelf cracking. I know that's the metaphor I hear a lot.
So, making a bed where the marbles go. You don't want those marbles, not at all. So pick a strip, but don't let them fall, because if it goes kerplunk, you're sunk.
Kerplunk from Tyco.
Or the shelf cracking. I know that's the metaphor I hear a lot. Every other thing you put on that shelf, it starts to crack, and eventually it's going to break.
And I don't want to say or try to manifest that Bethy's going to deconstruct, or, I mean, she's deconstructing something. She just doesn't use that word.
We don't want to try and predetermine where that's going to go.
I'm not saying that, in 5 years' time, Bethy's going to be an atheist at the Pride Parade, but I think that because she loves Dave so much and she respects him so much, that I think he might get her to change her mind on a few things. Because, like Bethy and Morgan and a lot of people, I think my husband is the smartest person I've ever met, and I really deeply respect his opinion, and I think that's why we fight so much, or why I feel like I have to be right, but like there's that nagging feeling that I'm wrong, but I just can't quite articulate it. It's because you are so good with words, and you do have, like, you do think a lot, like, about things before you talk about them, you know, and you give good advice, and you're very wise, and you've experienced a lot in life, so it's really fun to bounce ideas off of you. And I mean, there's been things where I thought that I was right, and it took maybe a couple years, and then I changed my mind on something because you were so respectful about it. And so I just wonder how this push and pull is going to go with them, because I don't see a universe where Bethy is an atheist, but I can see her maybe relinquishing some of her more harmful ideas. But at the same time, Girl Defined, they're putting out a book this summer, I think, that's about God's design for biblical womanhood, which is like, okay, you've done that many times now, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we also don't know what Dave's political opinions are now, and those will definitely change as the other stuff changes. But it's just interesting to see that this tiny little step, and that she is so supportive and so nice about it, because I don't know if the gender roles play a role in this. I don't know if she's ceding the point to him because he's her headship, or if she's just truly respects his opinion because he is so smart and so nice to her.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I thought about that too. According to her worldview, she has to respect him no matter what, but then she also has to be faithful to God no matter what. So she's literally in a bind, and I definitely experienced some of that too. But yeah, it's interesting to think, to observe her and see like which one is gonna win out, you know? Submitting to God, submitting to her husband, because they conflict in this case, according to her worldview. Look at this dog. Look at him. He's so sweet.
And I also want to highlight just real quick.
You can leave a religion together. You can also leave separately. You can also, yeah.
Well, and I just want to highlight, and I say this to our viewers watching now, any fans we have, but also Dave, Bethy, if you're watching this now, Bethy in particular, having you become an atheist is not anybody's goal. Nobody wants you to give up God and religion. That's not what we're looking for. There are beliefs that you have tied up in your faith and your religion that we are much more concerned about.
100%. Totally agree.
But no one wants you to give up on believing in God. Many, and I know we hammer this point over and over, but it's because it has to be. Many, maybe the lion's share of deconstructors are still religious at the end of the process. They just change their approach to that faith. They don't discard it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the people who are afraid of deconstruction, like Bethy, or maybe she's not afraid of it, I don't know, they think that it's a straight line. Like, it's, you start Christian, you end atheist, and all this stuff happens in between. Really, it's more like a spectrum that's like a circle, and it branches out. Like,
true, but it was a straight line for me. It was a straight shot. Just kept deconstructing more and more and more. Just, I felt like, I was slipping down a slide and there was no way to stop it, and it just kept going and going and going, and it did very much feel like a straight shot, just keep going in one direction. So I do think it's valid. The fear is valid that could happen. If you really, really want to keep your faith, it is scary and it sucks when you can't.
Deconstructing just means taking it apart, examining it, and rebuilding it if you so choose. But some people come out of deconstruction with a stronger faith.
Yes.
Because they got rid of all the bullshit that man was putting on them, that their church was making them do, that their toxic friends were making them do. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be an atheist. And I know a lot of fundamentalists think that I'm like this big mean atheist, but like I'm very supportive of Christianity and other religions. I think it's really cool, and I think there's a lot of good stuff about religion too, but it's just not what I believe in. So,
and there are some beliefs that need to be examined independent of how you feel they're tied to God.
Right, like political beliefs that people say are actually from the Bible. You know, like homophobia and transphobia, wherein that's already its own discussion, because, you know, the word homosexual was not put into the Bible until the 1940s. So the entire cultural context and what people's lives were like in Bible times are completely different, and they had different things that they were talking about. I think that they're using their religion to shield their bad political beliefs, and I don't think that that's a fair thing to do.
Absolutely.
You know, it was good. It brought up a lot of really interesting, good things to rehash.
So first off, I just want to say, like, anyone who's giving Paul Morgan any grief from that
let's talk about the
video-
grief that Paul and Morgan did.
like, yo, they came and stayed with us. Like,
Okay, I will say, there's a lot to be said about how Paul treats Morgan on camera, or how Paul treats any minority group on and off camera, but that's not what I want to draw focus on, although that is a very valid criticism. It's interesting here that they are so nice to Paul and Morgan, and they are friends with them to the point where they're saying they don't deserve any grief, they don't deserve any criticism. Well, maybe that's not what they're saying exactly, but because just being friends with them is not a good thing, and you know, I don't want to be like dictating or bossing people around about who they can and can't be friends with, and all that, but like the fact that they're still friends with them or willing to be congenial with them is a red flag. Like, people can be nice in person. That doesn't mean they're not, you know, prejudiced.
Yeah. And as an adult, I just think you have to be aware of the company you keep. It's not necessarily a one-to-one, you know, ratio. It's but they're going out of their way to defend someone. That's gonna reflect back on you, and you have to be aware of it. I think that there also is kind of a blind spot here where the grief that Paul and Morgan are getting... The grief that Paul and Morgan are getting, y'all, that you aren't getting, is in some regards based on Paul and Morgan's behavior. Paul and Morgan are more combative than you two. They argue with people more than you two do. And so I'm saying this to tell you that, yes, Paul and Morgan got some blowback, but if they're telling you that they're just getting all this hate and it's all just haters, remember, your boy Paul likes to get in there and mix it up in the comments. He knows what he's doing.
Yes, he likes to mix it up in the comments. He also likes to make, like, stories on his Instagram every day that are horribly offensive, and he likes to get in the middle of it.
Yeah, and so I say, like, yeah, I mean, you can defend them, sure, but I think that you are ignoring the fact that maybe they're bringing some of this onto themselves.
we got a first-hand look at these people, and we've known that, like, we've been together with them in person one other time, and we've just connected through, like, now, like, as friends, long distance, because they're just awesome people. But they're so amazing, and they were so kind and genuine and, like, so full of integrity and, like, to their word on everything they said.
Is this like a Southern thing? Like, you know, they were so nice in person.
I think this is more...
Yeah, they were nice in person. You think Paul was going to come and, like, shit on your couch or something? No, like, they're going to be nice to you.
I think
Why did I go to that immediately?
See, I got more of the, like, this to me was more of the, like, standard issue, like, what was that? Don't worry, darling. After everyone was arguing and fighting, and it was like, people were like, hey, what's going on over there? They're like, it's okay. Nobody's mad at anyone.
It's really funny that you bring up Don't Worry, Darling, because you didn't watch that you were watching it over my shoulder.
Yeah.
I watched it on the plane to Utah.
She did. And I don't know nothing about... I don't know nothing about the movie, but I remember the whole thing where they were like, hey, did Harry Styles just friggin' spit on Chris Pine? And they were like, it's fine. Everybody had a great time. You've got... Emma Stone up there.
Dave, I think you would really like that movie. You should watch it.
They gave us the final, say on anything in the video to like have it removed, whatever. Like they are just so awesome. And like as a married couple behind the scenes, it's like we have seen them and they are just so kind to one another. Like Paul is so kind to like taking care of Morgan, and Morgan's like so...
I find that really hard to believe, but okay.
Kind to him. They're just an awesome couple. Like we're genuinely inspired by their marriage and by them being here.
I was inspired by Paul. By the time they left, I had a couple thoughts. One was like, I really like them, kind of like I wish they would stay, that sort of thing, because I thought they were great. We would totally hang out with them if they lived here and all that. And I thought I was particularly inspired by Paul and the way that he treated Morgan with respect and with care and looked out for her, and it just, I liked their dynamic, and I liked the way they related to each other in a lot of ways. I felt inspired to be a better husband to Bethany. So yeah.
I'm not saying it was written by Paul and Morgan, what we just heard.
Sounds like.
But I'm saying that
Paul's like secretly hiding behind Dave, like, and say I'm really awesome.
I cannot verify this, but I feel
and he totally
like
is able to do a backflip.
Somebody maybe wrote that for you and asked that you read it on camera.
I don't agree with that.
I could be
wrong. But it is a funny idea. And I will say that regardless of where this came from, sometimes overdoing the compliments can say a lot too.
I think that anyone who's giving any grief, or even like, I don't know, whatever the reels they're posting or things they're saying now, it's like people, I don't know, people just want to find something about it, but we have like nothing but good things to say about. I mean, I think that's true.
Well, I'm very positive. I'm just very positive about them and about
After the hard conversation, we've had a couple of hard weeks.
Yeah.
In the sense that like we've just pressed into a lot of this stuff.
Oof, that's a Christian phrase. Pressed in. Triggered.
Rather than just like moving on, we've just like really been like, hey, it's been more of like let's just like be super honest and like seek outside counsel. We had our literally a few days after Paul and Morgan were here, you had our pastor come over. We literally were sat in our living room for like 3 hours. He was just kind of like a third party listening to like the 3-hour version of what you saw at the dinner table. Like
that makes sense. And I'm not going to get mad at them for bringing their pastor over to talk about theological stuff. But I just wish every time she says we got counseled, I really wish it was a licensed counselor, secular, and not a theologian.
Ironically, this is one of the few moments where I would say it's probably a good idea to call your pastor. Hey, pastor, we had like a whole weekend of deep philosophical, theological conversations, and we're confused about our faith and we'd like to talk. That's a time where I tell you, call your pastor, talk to them, process with them. It's deep-seated, difficult marriage issues that you maybe should go get someone with a license for.
That's fair.
And so much more just trying to like figure out like, okay, what do I need to change? Does he need to change? What if we just can't, like we just see differently? How can we love each other still? How can we give each other grace? And it's been like one thing like that after another, I feel.
Yeah. So a lot of people are wondering, Dave, to what he sounds like he's deconstructing, to what degree?
Yeah.
And you have people that are kind of more
I'm here.
like, oh, he's a Christian but nice.
Oh, he's a Christian but nice. Oh my god. And Bethany's just like, yeah, we're really mean. Christians are mean. Go on.
or he's like he's just compromised his faith, or he doesn't have strong faith, or whatever.
Or some people are mad at Paul for like insinuating
Mad at Paul for
that you're deconstructing.
Yeah, which I would say in that case, with Paul and I, we also had more private conversations, and so Paul's operating with more information than what you see in the video.
Yeah.
And so, get up off Paul,
Okay, Paul came for you. So I guess he's turning the other cheek. Paul was
gotta
in
pause
the
to read
comment
this.
section.
Damn. Paul is loving the sinner, hating the sin here. Oh, I feel bad for Dave. He's like, stop, coming after Paul. He's my good friend. He's such a good friend to me. No, he's not, dude. Oof. I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Saying that Dave was not a Bible-believing Christian.
There is whenever someone tries to refute a
Maybe
common
they filmed
story,
that before this.
whenever someone does this where they try to refute, like, oh, that's not really
I'm
what
pretty
happened.
sure it was in my comment section.
We watched the video, and he's the one that edited it, so I don't feel bad about drawing my conclusions. And you can say there were 1,000 conversations off screen. Well, that's great. They should have been on screen.
So the bottom line is I had a new level of mental crisis that week that Paul and Morgan were here, and it
Me every week.
started before they got here with some random men's group stuff I was doing, and as well as certain questions that I was asking. Even while Paul and Morgan were here, I was asking some people that know me pretty well, or what are my greatest weaknesses, and
You were just like, you were inviting all this criticism.
I was inviting a lot of.
I said this in our video. I said this was happening.
Be careful with that, Dave, because you might end up in a not so good place with your self-esteem if you seek out criticism, especially non-constructive criticism.
And Christianity in general, and especially this kind of evangelical Christianity, has this general concept that if you're enjoying it, it's probably sinful, or there's probably a sinful element to it. And conversely, if you're hurting, that's pure and holy and good, and that's how things are supposed to be. And so, yeah, just like Jen said, that's not how it is. Be very careful reading that kind of stuff, or, digging into the criticisms of yourself, especially in your unique situation, man. It's not good for you, and it can be a fine line to recognize when you're, between trying to grow and learn from those criticisms, as you've clearly done in some regards, and then just using it to kind of flagellate yourself, which doesn't help you or the people you're talking to or anybody.
Criticism, I did this thing called, this like hot seat thing where you sit there and these guys kind of like, you stand or sit there and the guys poke at you and try to kind of get you to, get provoked.
I don't like this
and we talk about it.
They literally did that to Ted Kaczynski in college, and that broke his brain.
Yeah, let's move on.
We'll talk about what comes up.
So it was kind of a rough week before Paul and Morgan got there, because you were like having all this, like, inviting all this criticism into your life, and you were kind of like,
I was grumpy. And then I found, one of the things that got me through?
what?
For the first time in, 15 years, Billy Joel releases a new song.
Yes.
Billy Joel.
And it is phenomenal, and I loved it so much. Maybe you love me, maybe you don't. Maybe you learn to, and maybe you
We know what
won't.
Billy Joel
I was
fans are
mowing the
called.
lawn before.
I was going to say he's a Joel head, but I don't know if that's...
And,
Because he's a crying man.
Because I'm
We
crying,
Boys
man.
Unite!
I told you.
And
Boys!
it's
We're gonna be
such a
bros.
good song if you haven't heard
Yeah.
it. And so I was already in that space, and then we had a ton of conversations with Paul and Morgan and with Bethany about all these things. And I have a lot of differences with Paul, Morgan, and Bethany when it comes to just ideologically, and, values, Christianity, all kinds of stuff. So then we had that dinner table conversation. That was the first day they were here. It's edited, like it was the last thing, but it actually happened earlier.
The first day.
And then And then the next day, and in pickleball, which, by the way, they absolutely crushed us on.
Side note, I've been hearing about pickleball a lot, and I didn't even know it existed until, I don't know, like a few months ago. And I was like, pickleball? What the fuck is pickleball? But even before finding out what it was, it gave me like youth group vibes. Like I could just imagine a bunch of like early marrieds or early college, you know, Christian people like playing pickleball with their home group, with their home group? Is that what you call it? God, I've been out of it for so long. What do you call that? Not your Bible study, but your, is it a home group? Your, you know, that group from your church where you all get together and fellowship and do life, you know, and do pickleball for the Lord.
They
destroyed our guts.
ate our lunch on, yeah. That was,
I find that hard to believe.
that was some poorly edited content, and I mean that in the sense that it did not give you a realistic picture of what actually happened. They kicked our butts.
Extremely gracious.
100%. And they were very kind and all that. Yeah. But they were very good. They're much better than we are. But next time, we'll see. What basically happened is I got to this point of like, I've been circling deconstruction, just to use the term loosely. I'm okay with the term.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it.
I'm not against it at all. I think there's this misconception that I'm against it, but it's more just like when you typically hear the term deconstructing, like I typically think of someone like completely deconstructing from their faith. And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still very much like a believer in Jesus and very much think what the, you know, like trying to understand the word and living it out practically is important. So I don't want to be labeled. I don't really care for the label, I guess, but I'm okay with it anyway.
Yeah. And my...
He's like, yeah, right. Mine's the same, except completely different. Go on.
I'm short-circuiting, dude. I can't.
So this is the video we've been looking for. It is
racing.
It lives up to the hype. We're 15 minutes in. This is wild. Okay. Woo! Buckle up.
I'm okay with the term for sure, and I'll often use it. I know it's popular, and it's kind of, you know, rings a bell.
Rings a bell? Rings a Rob bell? Oh man, that's a 2013, 2014 deconstruction joke. I don't know who's gonna get that.
So it's kind of easy, but there are kind of two different types of deconstruction that I think of when it comes to the popular stuff that is kind of happening in this trend, the trend that's happening.
Oh,
and one is, it's almost like you're consciously deconstructing in the sense of you're actively questioning beliefs and like, is this true? Is that true? And it's almost like you're taking things apart. And then there's the kind of deconstruction where people describe it as pulling a thread and it's just kind of like the whole thing falls apart. It's like you're not even going towards everything. It's just kind of like everything's sort of crumbling and then you're just in this crisis mode and nothing's left. It feels a little bit more towards the first one, but I'm sure there's probably a mix. The things that changed for me through the course of that weekend with Paul and Morgan, and actually we were at Zach and Kristen's one night, and there was some conversation there, and through the course of all this, and then these moments of like surrendering, trying to just find my identity in Christ and get strength through that, and
been there, dude, been there. Go on.
And to be more emotionally stable and all of this stuff, it basically, something broke over that.
His shelf broke. That's what he's talking about. But to use language like that would be scary.
That week, and I didn't feel tied down anymore to like basically anything that would keep me from fully questioning my beliefs and my faith when it comes to this stuff. And I even found myself wanting Christianity to not be true, just because of my own personal experiences with trying to have it be real in my own life, and just the disappointment that I found where it hasn't my perspective, it hasn't really seemed to help me. It hasn't really seemed to make me any more of a better husband or a better man. It seems like when I do other things that are more taking charge of my own development, it seems like I improve more. And then it seems like when I try to find my identity in Christ, it just doesn't seem to.
Wow, look at Bethany. That's an amazing amount of restraint, to be honest, that she's sitting there listening to that. I would imagine, based on my own past experiences, that she's freaking the fuck out inside. That she's just like, everything in her just wants to like argue and like point him back to the word and tell all her, you know, the things that she tells herself if she has her own doubts, which I would imagine she probably does at some times. I think it's fascinating that she's just sitting there respectfully letting him talk when everything he's saying like goes against everything she puts her identity in. Bonkers.
To work, and so I got to this point where it's like I hope this isn't true, because I don't want to go through life always having to think I'm the worst, and in order to find the life in Christ.
There it is.
Holy shit.
That's kind of what I wanted.
That's literally exactly what I hear from a lot of, especially men who have deconstructed, because that's usually, yeah, I've just heard this before from a lot of different people, and it's really meaningful to hear it from Dave.
But I think the only thing I would say, Dave, is when you're talking about those two types of deconstructors, the thread pull and everything falls apart versus the I'm just examining certain parts of my faith and not fully taking it apart, I would just remind you to remember that there's a lot of common ground between those people. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of deconstructing, truly deconstructing your faith in a healthy, positive way, is understanding why some other people get so angry. Mm-hmm. Understanding why this matters so much to some other people, and why some people do give up their faith entirely. Why some people do want the church to come down. Mm-hmm. Why some people are so bitter and actively resentful towards religion. You don't have to agree with them, but I think an important part of growing in your own faith is understanding them.
Having empathy for that, especially, I don't know what every single event of Dave's life, but a lot of people were hurt by the church. They had, or they were abused and had it covered up, or they feel like, they spent 30 years doing a job or volunteering at the church for something, and then when they deconstruct and they find out like they've been lied to, or they've been exploited for labor, or they wasted all this time doing something that they once really cared about, or not having support for a problem in their life, when that the whole time that everyone says, oh, the church is supposed to be your support, and then they don't get it and they have nothing to hold them up. Like, people do get legitimately harmed by churches, and not just, sure, sometimes it's the beliefs that are toxic. Maybe they're a queer person and they're growing up hearing that they're going to hell just for being who they are, or, maybe it's something a little more simple than that. But now Dave has never said this, and I'm not putting this on him, but like Paul and like people like him have made, implications or comments that, oh, you're just bitter, or you just have church hurt. People have church hurt and then they deconstruct. And it's like,
yeah, just to jump in really quick, I got that a lot when I first started deconstructing and sharing very shamefully with some of the people closest in my life. I got that so much. I got that from my very best friend. That was so tough. It made me feel so deeply, deeply misunderstood. And it was so invalidating. And my friend didn't mean it in an invalidating way at all. And I probably said the same damn thing to other people before I was in my deconstructing mode. Because it did not happen, until it happened. And I didn't understand it until it happened. So, yeah, I love that Jen is pointing this out right now.